everyone, and welcome to the third episode of our Global Leadership Exchange Women in Leadership podcast. My name is Akimi Jones, and I am the Assistant Director for Learning and Development with Recovery Innovations. And with me today, I have...
Hi, everyone. I'm Joy Brunson in Subuga. I'm also with Recovery Innovations. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for our organization, and I'm excited to be here with you today. Of course, our topic, or I should say theme, that we have been working with for this podcast has been Ideas in Action, Inspiring to Mobilize Creative Solutions. And today we're going to be talking about turning ideas into real-world impact. That is a mouthful, but that is what we're going to be talking about today.
That's a mouthful. Yeah, we are talking about, in essence, that's a long way of saying, how do we get our ideas over the finish line? How do we take all of the great things that we have sort of circling around in our brains into tangible action items that then allow us to cross over the finish line with the finished product?
Absolutely.
Joy, what is an idea that you once had that scared you, but you pursued it anyway?
What is an idea that I once had and I pursued it anyway? Okay. So I am definitely introverted. And so originally speaking in front of people scared me a lot. Just doing presentations scared me a lot. I was always, and I mean, people probably don't know that about me because I've done so many. But I always get super nervous because it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure for the presenter. How is your information going to be received? I've been at presentations where people have heckled the presenter, discounted the presenter, provided evidence of different information. So it was just very nerve-wracking of like something that I just did not want to do. And it's also not an energy give to me. It's an energy like drain to me because I am I'm so introverted. But I've been doing it anyway. And the way that I get through it is that I expect there to be like a 4-person group at the back of the room who's going to bother me. I do a lot of prep to make sure I'm on my game, but I also welcome other ideas from the audience that's taking my presentations. And then finally, I never read my reviews.
Does not. But you do a great job.
I have other people that read my reviews and then like let me know, but it's just not something I can do, and so I don't. So yeah, that's something that I have done. There's probably a lot of information, but yeah.
I think that's good information. I don't think I knew that particular. I knew some of the details, not all of them. Like I didn't know that it used to make you really, really nervous. I know it's draining. I enjoy doing it, but it is draining to present. So we are the same there. But I learned something new.
I get super like stressed out the day before, and then I try to like talk myself out of it. Like, why did I do this? I could have been at home. I could just have a regular work day. Why did I put myself out there? Like I go through like a whole process, and then I go in and do it.
Acceptance. So you go through all of the processes of denial until we get to acceptance. You're like, okay, it's go time. Get out there, win it. It's over.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that you can be, or at least I'm told that I'm really good at it, but you can be really good at something and not enjoy it, or for it to be very scary to do.
That is very true.
Yeah. So what about you?
Let's see. What is an idea I once had that scared me, but I pursued it anyway? Gotta narrow it down. So I would say I'll do something more recent.
Okay.
So for my birthday this year, my present to myself was writing a book. Now,
Okay.
I have been sitting on this book for years.
Hmm.
Um, out of fear of, is anyone gonna like it? What exactly am I gonna say in this book? Is it gonna make any sense? There's already probably so many, all the things we say to deter us from doing, respectfully, from
Hmm.
walking in our purpose and doing the things we should be. So I had a long list of reasons as to why I should not write the book and move forward with it. And then
Hmm.
a few months before my birthday, I don't know, something shifted. And the question to myself was, but why not? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen, right? You don't sell any copies, right? You at least wrote a book, right? The worst thing that can happen is it turns out to be terrible. And then you know me, I like to fail fast and I'm not afraid of
Yeah.
failure,
Yeah.
right? So I say, well, at least I learned what not to do, right? Or I can get feedback to, understand maybe why it didn't do how I wanted it to do and then make a better version or, move forward. So I eventually said, you know what? Happening. We're doing it. So I had to push all of my fears to the side and I really just got in this flow state. And I was able to, everything worked out. I would say things work out the way they're intended to. So everything worked out to where the book went live on Amazon the day before my birthday.
Oh, nice.
And so that,
Congratulations.
so that is probably one of, I mean, I have a lot of scary things that I've done, but that is one of the more recent ones where I was for a while I was paralyzed by um self-doubt,
Hmm.
right? And then I had to be like, wait a minute, you know who you are. We don't live in the realm of self-doubt. We do it. We push through, we get it over the finish line, and then
Hmm.
on to the next one. So I think one of the big questions here, and it is actually our next question, what's the difference between having a great idea and actually moving it forward? Um, there's a lot of individuals out there that have great ideas, wonderful ideas, right?
Hmm.
But they never actually come to fruition because they stay here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's because of, I would say sometimes it's because of self-doubt or um, sometimes it's just I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was never
Yeah.
taught how to do it, so I don't know how to do it. And when we don't make an attempt to do something, the effort to make an attempt sometimes just seems overwhelming. Sometimes you just have to tell
Well,
yourself, just do it. But that can be difficult. Um, that can be difficult for individuals, and it is not common nature, at least I don't think it's common nature, for humans to ask for help.
well,
I
that's
think that's something we taught to do.
yeah. So that's what I was thinking because I have like I've worked at RI for so long, and I have this person who knows who they are, um, who has ideas for days. Like, and I've worked with them for 12 and a half years, ideas for days. I mean, just flows with the ideas. But when it comes to actually doing anything with those ideas, that's a whole different skill set. So I am one of the ones I come up with good ideas, but I don't come up with good ideas like every day, right? And so there are individuals that have the skills to put ideas into action, to actually tell you, okay, this is how you operationalize this thought.
Mhm,
This is how
mhm,
it could work. This is how it's not going to work in this system. So there is it can be two separate people. One who has all of these things but doesn't know how to put it into action,
implement.
and the one who's like, oh, I can take that and I can make it work. But so often I think people want to have that in the same person, and it doesn't
Not
have to be.
realistic.
You can have a
Mhm.
partner where both sides are equally important. um but it's knowing how to implement something, but it's also knowing the strategy of implementation. Just because you have 6 ideas and you're already moving doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right time for certain
Right.
ideas. So it's
Right.
also fitting it into a system, and
Mhm.
that's really what my expertise are in. Um, knowing how to create the system, how to maintain
Mhm.
the system, how to implement things, and how to add
Mhm.
to the system without crashing the
Exactly. Don't
entire
overload.
system.
Don't overload the
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
I agree with that. I'm also a implementer, and I like what you said about everything doesn't have to be in one person. It's actually probably best that it's not, right?
Mhm,
It's good to be able to bring on, so let me start over. A huge part of getting an idea across the finish line, in my personal opinion, is identifying what are my blind spots for this idea?
mhm.
What are the things that I'm really excited about? Those are probably my strengths with the idea. What are the aspects of this idea that make me like, oh, that usually means that's where you can either get a partner or a mentor or find someone that's already done what you want to do and they're doing it really, really well. And pick their brains about, okay, so I know I'm good at this. This is my learning curve. And then you just start learning it. Getting anything over the finish line is always going to be a learning experience.
Yeah,
And I think the first step is embracing that there's a lot I don't know with this idea. It's okay. And then next time when you have another idea, that same you take that same energy, you take the things you learned from the previous idea and you roll it over and you just become good. Sort of wash, rinse, repeat sort of. You become good at learning what you're strong at, what you're not, what pieces or individuals to pull in to support the idea. Like you said, making sure it's a phased approach, making sure it's a good season
yeah,
for what it is you want to do. And if it's not, that's okay. You build it out so when the season is ready, you can push the button and go live. But as we deepen the conversation, we know that our target audience, I mean, we're here for all leaders. So this is very much an inclusive podcast, but giving its title, Women in Leadership, as we deepen the conversation, what do you think some of the barriers are that most often stop women specifically from turning ideas into action? I struggle with this question a little bit because I feel like kind of doesn't matter the gender. I feel like they both struggle with the same. So I'm going to have to take some time to really think about specifically for
so I
women what stands out. Mm.
so a couple of things popped into my mind.
Okay.
And so first, what popped into my mind was the statistic that I read years and years ago about um, when applying for jobs, a male will apply for a job if they are, I think it was like 60%. If they had 60% of the qualities for that job, they would apply for it. Yet for females, it was more of, or women, it was more of closer to like 95%, like 100%. And so the study that I was reading, or just the article, was really about what makes that difference. Why
Mm-hmm.
does one side have to be like, all right, I have everything, where the
Mm-hmm.
other side is like, I got most of it. All right, let's go for it. So
Let's
so
do
so
it.
I think there is a confidence level and
Mm-hmm.
a competence level that does play a part in getting
Mm-hmm.
ideas over the finish line. And so I think that is one.
Would you say it's the perception of? Do we think it's actual? And I guess it could be both. I guess it could be a both and. Do we think it's
Mhm.
actually that women lack the competency and confidence, or is it their perceptions of what others perceive to be a lack in competency and confidence? Hmm. I only ask
I
that because I mentor a lot of of women, and some of the things that we work on is how you're showing up in your space,
mhm.
right? There's one thing about how you feel, you know what you know, but sometimes it's difficult, like I say, stand 10 toes down with confidence in
Yeah.
knowing what you know. So that's why I'm asking, do we think it's a little bit of both, or do you think it's more of one than the other?
I think it's a little bit of both, but then I will also add that I think culturally, there is an aspect there too of being like rule followers and having
Mm,
to present a certain way. I think there's also cultural pieces that show up in it.
mm,
So I would add that as a third piece of like, okay, this is what I'm applying for. These are the rules. This
mm.
is what they're looking for. I don't have all of that. So I'm just not going to apply.
Just not gonna do it.
So I think there's a cultural piece, but I do think all three coming together is really what's coming up for me when I'm thinking about this question.
I think I appreciate that. I'm in agreement with that. You said something about cultural, and so I'm thinking about expectations, right? The
Mhm,
expectations that are um, realistically or unrealistically placed on our shoulders as women.
mhm.
Knowing that we actually make up most of the workforce now, actually. So this may have shifted some, but I still think there is this pause that women sometimes take of, I have this great idea. I really want to do it. But my husband, right, it's going to pull me away from, or my kiddos, or how am I going to fit it into? We take the back
Oh,
burner.
the
We
mental
often take
load.
the back seat. We often take um, the back seat sometimes with things that are our passion,
Mhm.
things that fuel us. Not that our families don't fuel us, but respectfully, we were individuals before we got married and before we had kiddos. And sometimes we push that to the side so that we can fill the new spaces that we're in. Um, and I think those ideas, sometimes just even having to sit down and write it on paper can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because what are
Well,
the next steps? Where do I go from here? Well, I'm not going to have the time, or my husband doesn't even get home in time for me to do these things, or this is going to require me to spend some time away from the home to get these things completed. And if you are a homemaker, which is just as important as working outside of the home, when are you going to find the time?
yeah.
Does your lifestyle allow, um, for allow you to have that time to do those things? So I also think about that as well from that cultural expectation, gender role piece.
Yeah. And I think I would add in just having partners of any kind. I think I would add in, and then also caregivers. There's lots of other caregiver roles that's outside of what people typically think about. Children always come first, but with like to mind, but
Parents.
there's also other types of caregiving expectations of caretaker for extended families,
Mhm.
caretaker for aging parents, or um, partners aging parents. There's just so many other pieces that play a part that affects that entire mental load, to adding something else in, as it may feel like may not be a possibility at that point. But sometimes, you know, not being able to do something right now does not mean that it's not a good idea, or going slower than you may want to, or holding on to it until it is a good time. I think sometimes we do like now or nothing,
Mhm.
versus what does progress look like?
You bring up a good point. It makes me think about a conversation I had with one of my mentors when I was ready to um, launch my personal business. And she goes, Kimi, she's like, you like to do a lot of things. And I was like, I do. I like to get stuff done. She's like, yeah, you like to move it from the to do to the to done, because I say that often. And she goes, but realistically, how many hours do you have in a day
Mhm.
to try to get all of these things from your to do to done? And I told her, well, by the time my daughter goes to sleep and my husband goes to sleep, like I can work it. She said, she said within the actual working day, not cutting into 12 a.m. or 11 p.m. Like, when are you going to have time for your kid? When are you going to have time for your husband? When are you going to have time for yourself? When are you going to have time for your friends?
Mhm.
And I was like, but that's not important. Like, we got to build this. And she said, one, she said, run your own race. She said, it will take as long as it takes. She
Mhm.
say, we build it layer by layer. So by the time, for example, your daughter is in elementary school, right, that's going to free you up a little bit.
Mhm.
Then you might be ready to take on a little more responsibility with your business. And this
Mhm.
conversation happened in 2022, 2023. And I was upset with her at first. I was like, not you trying to slow me down. I'm like, I got stuff to do. Now that it's 2026, I'm very appreciative for her slowing me down. We're still building it layer by layer. It's coming to fruition, and it's doing what it needs to do. So I appreciate what you said about sometimes we have this mentality of we have to get everything across the finish line right now. That's not true. Who wrote those
Mhm.
rules? Where does it say that? Right? So
Mhm.
it's making the ideas, the great ideas we have, work for us. There's no
Yeah.
rule book for it. There's no cookie cutter model, and you very much should run your own race. And what's meant to be will be. And we
Yeah.
just have to be, intentional about those things. So, one of the things we've talked about is self-doubt, or sort of being scared to show up for ourselves. So, how do we navigate self-doubt or fear of failure when building something new? I know I talked about it a little bit with the book, so I was
Mhm.
paralyzed for a little bit by my fear, but eventually what I tend to do is sit down and I have to have what I call a rational conversation with myself. Like, Kimmy, what's the worst thing that could happen? Right, what is the worst thing? Like, the world is not going to end. Do it, right? Just do it. Just
Yeah.
go out there and do it. And so that tends to be my method. Sometimes I do a pros and cons list if I'm really struggling with whether or not to move. I'm big on getting my thoughts out of my head, because it's like having a ball of just a knotted up ball of yarn. Sometimes I'm very busy brained.
Mhm.
So for me, the act of, I don't know how many Harry Potter fans we have listening, right? But remember when Dumbledore, right? He put the little wand to his head and he pulled the little thoughts and memories out and he dropped them in the pool or in the water so you could look at it. That's how I think about my thoughts. I have to take my pen, I have to get them out of my head so I can write them down and focus on them and see what's fact, fiction, or feeling,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
navigate that way. So that's how I tend to tackle it. What about you, Joy?
Um, so I think self-doubt and fear is common. Is common. And I also think that we all have different levels of tolerance for risk and fears and all of that. So I think this is a very like personal question. Um and I like two things came up for me. One was something that one of my professors said in graduate school. Um, he was talking about fears and facing fears, and was very gestalt for those of you who know that type of therapy. And so he would also say like, what's the worst that could happen? And I remember being like, oh, well, this could happen. And he was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do that to you right now. You think someone's gonna heckle you when you're presenting? All right, go stand over there and what do you want to present on? And I'll be in the back and I'm just gonna like heckle
The
you.
worst fears to life.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead, bring them to life,
Exposure
and
therapy.
and then you can decide if this is going to deter you or not. And whatever he did, he was very good at it. So it wasn't like a pretend doing it, like he would just go
Doing
full
it.
in.
He locked in.
He would go full in. So that's one of the things that comes to mind. And then the other side is because I hold on to a lot of experiences. Was when I was doing executive coaching, and we started talking about my whys. Why do I do the things that I do? And from that, I started to understand where my fears came from, because not all fears are rational fears. So one of the fears, and I've had this fear for a long time, and I've been able to move on from it. It became a motivator for me until it became a deterrent. And it was my ultimate goal was always to move out of South Carolina, where I'm from, move into the city and like expand my career. My fear was not being able to move out of South Carolina. And so because that was my goal, I looked at each next step with the risk of, is it
Being
going to
able to do
land me
that.
back where I don't want to be? And so that motivated me for good until I was like 35, 36. And then realizing that I'm still operating with those same fears, and those fears are no longer valid. And so if I make a mistake, if I fail, if I have an idea and it blows up in my face, it's not going to put me back where
Right.
I don't want to be. But
Right.
because that fear was so like ingrained in me, I had to intentionally start to separate myself from, okay, thank you. You were a motivator. You've gotten me this far, but you're no longer relevant. So now
Survival mode.
switching to what is my new why, my new motivator, my new goals and processes changes now my risk tolerance and my ability to see failure.
What you hit on there is your motivators and your whys can change. Technically, they should change. They evolve just like you do as a person. Who you were before 35 is not necessarily the same person you are now over 35. It sounds like you went from survival mode to, okay, I don't have to live in that lane anymore. Now I can do some other things. But that's very much a rational fear, though. That I would, it's because I too am finding myself like, okay, we have got to get out of got to get out of survival. But like, what's the worst thing that can happen? But that is a hard one. From personal experience, that is a hard one to get out of, because the experiences that we came from were very real. And we don't take away from those experiences because they made us who we are. But respectfully, I don't want to go back.
Oh, not in that way. Trust me. I will be back in South Carolina for the family reunion, then the fish fries and the activities and all that. Because I am proud of where I come from, but it's
Absolutely.
separating that to now being like, okay, I'm here and now I can take bigger risks, because failure is not as big of a deal as it would have been 10, 15 years ago.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Joy. So as we get to our closer here, what do you think one small step leaders can take to move ideas out of their heads into motion? What's one thing that can help get them moving towards achieving those goals?
I go back to your mission and your purpose and your why. Just because you have an idea doesn't mean it matches up with where you're going. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do something. And so I think, and it's also about timing. How does
Mhm.
it fit in with where you are on
Mhm.
your leadership journey? Um, so I think going back to your mission, your vision, and your why, where are you? Where would you like to be in 5 years? And how does these ideas fit into that? If if it's just an idea and it's not gelling,
Rooted in anything. Mhm.
then hold on to it, give it to somebody else, like do something
Mhm.
else with it. There's
Mhm.
lots of ideas, but going back to what you said about your book, the book works
Mhm.
because it's attached to your mission, vision, your
Mhm.
why, and who you are. it's
Right.
it's attached there. That's why books work. They
Mhm.
Everybody who writes a book, whether they're writing it just for monetary value or just throwing
Mhm.
ideas out there, they don't always work. But
Mhm.
you really have to tie what you want to do into who you are and what you want to do going forward that really makes the difference. So you don't
Mm.
end up with like 15 ideas that you're working on and they're competing against each other. They're not fitting in with who you are. You don't have the passion
Mhm.
for it. Like all of those
Mhm.
things leads to burnout, leads
Yep.
to
Frustration.
dropping projects and
Mhm.
not getting anything over that finish line, not actually going into that real world impact.
I agree with that. For me, the primary thing that sticks out from everything you just said is you can't move forward with an idea if respectfully you don't know who you are.
Mhm.
So you have to have, and I say this a lot. At this point, I need a T-shirt that says it. Self-awareness. As individuals, be it that you are a leader, an aspiring leader, a leader of self, a human in general, you have to know you better than anybody else, right?
Yeah.
And that could be sometimes the most difficult part, if I'm being honest, of getting a project over the finish line, because now you have to sit down and be like, okay, who am I? Who am I in this phase of my life? What are my plans for 5, 10, however we choose to plan? I'm a 5 year, 3 to 5 year girl. Every 3 to 5 years, I'm looking at something, right? Where do I want to be? Am I currently set up for success to do that? Or are there things I need to shift before I can even embark on this next chapter or journey with whatever this project is? So for me, I'm going to piggyback off of what you're saying. It's a small step, but it requires a lot of work. So it's self-discovery,
Mhm.
right? You need to understand who you are. What legacy do you want to leave? What do you want to accomplish? Why do you want to accomplish it? What are your values? Right? We have to, what's the saying? If you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. What are the
Mhm.
things that you stand on? The things that you stand on determine how you navigate spaces with intentionality. So
Yeah.
it's very important that that we know who we know who we are. So as we start teeing up and preparing for our match here in a couple of weeks, geez, it is literally in a. Let's look at the calendar. Let's see how close
It's
it
in
is.
like
Today
what,
is
2 weeks, 3 weeks?
in roughly about 2 weeks, we will all be in Canada together. So as we close out, what are some of the ideas I am most excited to explore during the match? And it's these conversations right here.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Where are we struggling with self-discovery? Do we know what our purpose are? What are some of the barriers? What are some of the strengths that we have? And how do we come together to, because I believe in relevancy and making sure that whatever we are coming together to do can be shared and be a tool and resource for others. Us coming together and just creating something that we could not even anticipated how great it was going to be. And today we actually had the honor and privilege of meeting our match attendees. So hey y'all, we're looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks, and
That
just
energy was
the
great.
magic the energy was great, and just the magic that is going um, to come from the wealth of knowledge
Mhm.
from the leaders that are joining. So that is what I am most excited to explore. What about you, Joy?
Oh, I would just like ditto that. It we don't always get the time to step away and pour into ourselves. And so that's what I'm looking for. My calendar is blocked. I can't have a meeting. I can't answer the phone. Like, y'all are gonna have to hold for 2 days. And I'm really looking forward to that, to intentionally pour back into myself. Um, is really what I'm looking for.
Being 100% immersed in the experience. And yes, we are the co-facilitators, but we are also attendees. And so we are very much looking forward to coming alongside the rest of our match participants. Like I said, just creating, oh man, just the energy today was so great. So
Yeah.
just creating greatness from it. So with that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in for our third episode of our podcast. We look forward to seeing you for our fourth and our fifth, which will be created while we are in Canada with our match participants. And there's just great energy and excitement around creating those. So with that being said, again, thank you for joining, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.